do we have a sign-up sheet up there?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. If people could settle in and do the introduction. Basically, call the meeting of the Higher Education Committee to order. We have two measures this morning, and allow me, if I can, to sort of set the stage for us without using too much of our time. After we set this meeting yesterday, thought we would have a little more time for these, and they probably will take more time than we would have had yesterday. We only have half that time this morning because we have a hard stop at 8:30 for rules. So this will function as socializing both of these measures for the respective representatives, and we'll take brief testimony on either, on both, but keeping them both into the 15 minutes each guardrails, because we're not going to run over on the first one and short the second one even further. But should we bring these back, we will have testimony the second time. Normally we try to get that out at the first hearing. We clearly don't have time to do that this morning, so just don't leave here thinking that you're not going to get an opportunity if you don't get the opportunity to speak this morning. With that, we're going to stay within our windows and therefore get started and let the speakers and folks use their time. Representative Saints, if you would come to our mic over here at my far right, your left, we will call up HB 18. Representative Saints, tell us about your measure. I know we have the original bill. There's been some discussion about some different things, but just talk to us about what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of committee. I have before you LC 49-2018, which is in relation to the dual enrollment program we have in our state. We know for a fact that dual enrollment is a highly valuable program that's highly utilized. Those costs have been increasing in cost in terms of its program utilization for multiple years. Many members of this General Assembly have seen we did a major cut to that dual enrollment and modification to ensure the sustainability. So I bring before you House Bill 18 for three reasons, and I'll clarify each point very quickly, but the constitutional ambiguity that we've left our public servants in administrating the program, the consistency that we need, and the compliance. When it comes to the constitutional ambiguity of the program, Plyler v. Doe made it clear that high school institutions aren't able and capable to check on residency requirements. That led our higher education institutions to do the same standard, to only check on enrollment in an eligible high school. It's clear that, at least to my knowledge, that intent of this General Assembly would be to match what we already require in out-of-state tuition, which is verifying legal Georgia residency. The committee should have before them what the Board of Regents has provided, which is only half of the program, of course, because it's also administrated through our technical college, which is the number of 4 different categories, but I'd bring to the attention the non-citizen, non-Georgia residents, which is 428 of 21,000 students, roughly 2%. So that's in terms of cost. Of course, we know that it costs 3 times as much for a dual enrollment student to attend that tuition hour than it does for that high school. We already in this state provide the highest quality basic education thanks to the generosity of our taxpayers. We owe it to them to ensure that anything above and beyond that follows the consistency that they appreciate. Furthermore, and I'll close with this, I know that this topic, because of its correlated issues in terms of immigration, have a lot of heated feelings. This is not a conversation of who deserves something and who does not. It's a conversation of who is eligible for something and who is not. I'm a son of a first-generation immigrant. I have a half-sister who went through a 5-year process on legalizing into this country. We have a broken immigration system, but we owe it to our nation to not create a mirage of opportunity when it comes to our domestic policy and put it in line with what is clearly the federal expectation, that we have to follow a legal port of entry, a legal residency documentation to ensure these kind of opportunities are there. Don't fault anyone for trying to utilize this program, but it's on to us to make sure we clarify who is eligible for it.
Thank you. Would gentlemen stand for questions?
Of course, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to remind the committee, you're welcome to ask the question, but we're eating into the witness time, and we'll have this, we're going to have the gentleman back as well. But if you have something for now, if timely, Representative Clark.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have a couple of questions. First, you already did the numbers, and you said basically this is less than 2% of students. But I just want to be clear. We're talking about minors. We're talking about kids that are in high school. Is that correct?
Thank you, Dr. Clark, and I know you have a background in higher education, so I appreciate the question. We're talking about individuals who are going above and beyond the basic K-12 education as afforded by our state by going to college during a high school time period. So they're receiving above that basic education that Plyler v. Doe made clear is protected, and we are doing nothing to attack that protection.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking is, what age are we talking about?
We're talking about those in the dual enrollment system.
Yeah, let me clear that. This is about the dual enrollment. So this is not selective by age. If you're eligible for dual enrollment, and you can be eligible for a portion of dual enrollment through some programs we've passed in the last couple of years that actually go into 9th and 10th grade. For the most part, I believe dual enrollment, in order to qualify, I'm looking for somebody from student finance. I'm not seeing them back there, but I believe I'm correct in saying that the majority of the students you see here would probably be juniors and seniors.
Okay.
What age you could be? I mean, there are 15-year-old
Well,
juniors these days.
Yeah, I can speak to that because I have a child in this age range, and I have a child that would be eligible for dual enrollment starting next year, and she's 16, and she would be 16 next year when she starts her fall semester. So I guess the question I have is, we're talking about children, and so that means that they have no control over their, quote, residency status. I don't know what process you went through to choose your parents, but like.
Okay, Dr. Clark, I'm going to rein you a little. If you got a question, let's ask it.
I have a question.
Well, let's get to it.
So the question is, why are we trying to take opportunities away from literal children that have no control over their residency status?
I'll direct the meeting if you can. Dr. Clark, I'll guide you to 50-36-1, which is past law in Georgia that says grants and loans are a benefit. This is a grant or a loan. The gentleman is not cutting new turf here. He is simply bringing to us the point that because the lawscape has changed, it's something that needs to be looked at. So we'll
Respectfully, Mr. Chair, it is cutting new landscape because today, right now, those students can use dual enrollment. So we are, or would be, taking away something they have access to now.
I'm not going to debate you with the time. I will just say this. The fact that one can do something does not make it legal. We're going to move on. I'm going to, if you're finished, there are no further questions. We'll take a couple of folks to testify on this, and we got about 7 minutes. So I have two folks. We have more folks now. We have 4 folks. So just we're going to go until we run out of time. Is it Teen Davis?
Tanae Davis.
Tane Davis, yes, ma'am.
Davis.
Please, yes, ma'am. If you'll come on, you can come to over here, and we'll turn that one on. So we have till 8:15. You can take all the time, or you can take half. You can take all the time. Yeah, because y'all are on the same side. Go ahead.
Thank you, Committee Martin and the committee for this, Chairman Martin and the committee for this opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Tanae Davis. I am the former director of Georgia State University's first early college, the first early college in the state of Georgia. I oppose HB 18. My experience leading the program for 15 years, I was a part of this program. 10 of those years I served as its director. The early college program at Georgia State is one of the few at the Research One University. Most of them are at dual enrollment, 2-year schools. Starting in 2007, we had 1 school, and by 2022, we had grown the program to 8 schools, serving up to 150 students each year. Early college students are those first-generation college goers, low SES, students of color, English language learners, Black males. With them at a Research One University, They achieved over a 90% retention rate, higher than the traditional Georgia State University freshman retention rate. Now, this is every semester. We had a 100% college acceptance rate, 85.71% college enrollment rate, and one class had a 6-year graduation rate of 65.57, which exceeds national rates. We have Dr. Derek Standifer, legacy class of 2009 from Carver Early College High School here in Atlanta Public Schools. First generation college goer, again, now has a PhD, and is a finalist for Teacher of the Year at his local high school. Mylesia Sims, first generation college goer and graduate, earned her master's at Georgia State, taught in APS, and now works at the district level in Fulton County Schools. Lamonte Parker, first generation high school graduate, first of our students to be accepted to Georgia State's Honors College. Then we have Erica, of Mexican ancestry, first generation American, first generation college goer, attended Georgia State undergrad, attended Georgia State for master's program, and remained with the early college program throughout her tenure. Those are just 4 of the over 750 students the program touched during my tenure. So do I believe the state should prevent any student from being able to access these vital, life-changing, family-changing, community-changing opportunities? No. I've seen how it changes generations. Unless we don't want these life-changing, community-changing, generational-changing opportunities. And if you all move forward with this bill, as a nation, we will yet again find another group to exclude. So we will still continue to remain United States of exclusion. Thank you.
You have a question? I'm sorry, let me turn you on. Was it?
No, I had a question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That I didn't pilot that well. No, that was just my chair's fault here. I thought the gentleman had a question for the author of the bill. So
No.
will ladies stand for questions?
Well, of course.
Just a quick one about your introduction. You're not here in any official capacity for Georgia State today, are you?
Oh, I'm not. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank you.
I'm not. Thank you.
Any further? Well, we don't have any questions. I'm not going to ask for them. Chris Bruce, we're trying to get to our speaker. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jorge, yes, sir. You're here for the other one. Sereno, am I saying that right? I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Giovanni Serrano, community organizer with the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights, GLAR. And today I will share the feedback from the current professor, classroom teacher, and former college access educator, Jonathan Perazza Campos. Legislation like HB 18, whose purposely is to bully vulnerable students, speaking to the well-being and mental health of many students, there is research coming now in public health from people like Dr. Emily Lemon, for example, studying Georgia specifically on how youth mental health is diminished and is severely threatened by discriminatory laws that lead to higher rates of stress, chronic stress, depression, and anxiety, and higher rates of suicide ideation. We already saw the impact of laws on the mental health of an 11-year-old in Texas who killed herself because of the rampant bullying that happened. These laws have this kind of effects on our youth. But when the policies used to bully students and policies used to discriminate against students who have high aspirations, that is exceptionally dangerous because it's not only do we have a lack of immigrant students and students of color, including Latino students in Georgia, who access dual enrollment, which is a racial equity issue, HB 18 will further discourage students who have high aspirations and want to take advantage of these opportunities. I can contribute economically and academically to these higher education institutions, but they are being barred out. And so it just creates layers of discrimination issues that also attacks on the economic mobility opportunities of already disenfranchised students. And then it ruins their mental health. And so these policies are dangerous and severely hurting the mental health of young people who have high aspirations in an otherwise underrepresented program when it comes to students from backgrounds that don't have access to dual enrollment in the first place. I went to high school. I didn't know the dual enrollment program existed, but it's also really important to recognize that there is people that have a program, that have an immigration process to apply to, and there is people that don't have an immigration process to apply to, like people that came from Cuba, or Nicaragua and other countries, they have a process they can apply to compared to countries that don't have a process they can apply to fix their immigration status.
Will the gentleman stand for question?
Yeah, I can stand for questions.
Do you have a question for the gentleman?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for the author, really.
Okay,
not him.
it's for the author. Thank you very much. Okay, we're getting down to time, so this will be the question, and I'm going to let the author round up, and then I'll tell you what the posture we are here. Chairman Dickey.
Okay, I'm sorry I walked in here a tad late. I'm just trying to figure out what this bill does, Chairman Sonny. I'm just not familiar with it, up on it. So I'm just, the residency requirements to be a legal resident. Could you just get to the bottom line what this bill does?
In the interest of time, I'm going to take this on just to keep us going. Chairman Dickey, what the gentleman is after is dual enrollment has expanded over the years.
Correct.
When it was originally installed, the only qualification is you had to be enrolled in a Georgia high school. You have a sheet here that says the number of people that are enrolled but have various citizenship and legal status requirements. And I think the gentleman is just bringing to our attention that this is a costly program, and we have it, as it grew, it's not been monitored.
Real quick,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. Yes, sir.
And I think the best way to define it is a consistency measure and being consistent with how we treat out-of-state tuition for a typical college student to utilizing the same residency standard for the dual enrollment process. That is all this bill would do.
So it's really restricting the number of people going into our dual enrollment program, getting higher education. We got a workforce that we're short here in this country and in this state, trying desperately to get trained workers, and this is going to restrict.
Arguably, if this is a workforce program, we're trying to capitalize this program for those eligible to legally participate in the workforce fully. And I will say just one clarification in terms of that 428 number. The Board of Regents might further clarify for that is up to 428, probably not even 2%. So we're talking about a very small scope that would meet this residency restriction, just because there is not currently data with how they've interpreted that case in terms of residency and requirement verifications.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative. So also, let me, for the people that add this, we got cut short. Rules have moved up 30 minutes on it, and we're a minute over our time in order to give Representative Fleming time for 6:02. So we wanted to socialize this to start the conversation as we have done this morning, and we'll bring this back. And as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, I'll state again, we have additional people that came to testify about this that they will be afforded that opportunity at the next hearing, should there be one, and also we will try to make it available for streaming and possibly being able to testify remotely. I can't promise that. So with that, we're going to move on to 6:02, sort of the same time or the same construct. We're going to let Representative Fleming socialize this thought here. We'll have some speakers, and then we'll have to stay on our schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. Also with me today, I have Mr. Tom Rollins, who helped work on this piece of legislation. I'm working on HB 602, which is LC 610093. HB 602 is discouraging violent, harassing, and materially disrupting student activity on higher ed campuses. In the United States, we respect the right to peacefully protest and even to engage in acts of civil disobedience. This bill does not limit or affect that right. Instead, it upholds the rights of students, faculty, and administrators on our college campuses to be free from the infringement of their rights to study and work, and targets individuals who use violence, vandalism, force, and harassment as a means to impose their will on others. Last year, we saw over 1,000 arrests of students around the nation at on-campus protests that often produced violence, significant damage to campus facilities, involved harassment of students and faculty based on their religion, and shut down the learning environment for many campuses. Those protests included an illegal encampment on UGA that resulted in the suspension of a number of students for recklessly disrupting the campus and refusing to disperse. Around the same time, protesters scuffled with police at Georgia State. Most recently, UGA suspended a group called Students for Socialism after its members targeted an event on campus. This appeal applies to students who receive state scholarships, loans, or grants, such as HOPE, to attend Georgia's public and private post-secondary educational institutions. It says that if you are such a recipient and are convicted or found through the institution's student disciplinary process to have committed certain acts of violence, vandalism, and aggression, that you will lose that financial support for 2 years. We are not talking here about punishing peaceful protest. The conviction or disciplinary action must be for fighting, violence, or similar unlawful behavior, damaging property, forcefully and physically violating others' access to buildings and events, significantly violating reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, and engaging in harassing behavior. The Student Finance Commission, USG, and TCSG are required to create a process by which students may be sanctioned, including a process for appealing any adverse finding. And just to point some line by lines, Mr. Chairman, lines 21 through 22 and 57 through 61 clarify to whom it applies to students and where campuses of eligible post-secondary educational institutions. Lines 36 through 56 define what materially disruptive conduct is, limiting it to violent, forceful, harassing actions and excluding any action protected by the First Amendment. And then lines 63 through 69 suspend state funding for students convicted of or found on the institution's disciplinary body to have engaged in acts of materially disruptive conduct. Mr. Chairman, that's HB 602, a number on time crunch. Happy for any questions.
Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So curious, don't schools already have rules surrounding this? Why do we need to make this law?
So, Mr. Chair.
I think you're an attorney, sir, so I'm going to remind you again, be very.
Yes, absolutely. They do. And I think the key here is that in addition to whatever discipline is where the message is being sent that you may also lose your state benefits if you are suspended or convicted of such an offense.
Respectfully, since you are a lawyer, you said may, and if I'm understanding this correctly, maybe I'm not, doesn't this make it to where you will?
If it's determined to be materially disruptive, you're convicted, you're found by the disciplinary committee to have committed that, and you fail in your appeal to the state finance committee or through whatever process is set up through the second part of the bill. There's an appeal process.
And so then my last question, because I just want to make sure I'm being clear, because you said civil disobedience is okay as long as it doesn't rise to some standard that we are apparently outlining in this bill. How do sit-ins and things like that work?
A brief sit-in is not going, in fact, there's a fleeting aggression is sort of an example here. I think reasonable individuals can draw the line between what is acceptable civil disobedience, which is short-term, and violent, harassing behavior, especially behavior that is directed at shutting down the ability of others based upon where they're from, et cetera, to speak freely.
Right, we're crossing into the lawyering thing. The material. I mean, I'm serious. I want to give everybody time, and as I said before, we'll have this back. But I want to respect. We've got a couple people who want to talk. The materially and disruptive conduct on lines 36 and outlined further on page 3 of the bill, I believe, is dropped in from the Chairman Bonner's bill from a couple of years ago.
That's correct.
Which we had to debate extensively. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We had to debate that extensively, which is why I am
and we will get an
concerned.
opportunity. Yeah, we will get an opportunity to do that here. So the lady's concern is noted. We will do that. Thank you, sir. A couple more questions. Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Fleming. Thank you for bringing the bill. I don't think it's something that needs to be debated that thoroughly because it's simple for me. Here's the question I have for you: would this bill protect a group of students, maybe in the Black Lives Matter movement, from being disrupted by a group of students for Nazism movement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have more? Any further questions of the author? I see none. All right, let's get a couple of speakers in here. Again, keeping in mind we'll get an opportunity to do it. I'll after speakers, can I do that? Representative Holcomb. Chris Bruce. They've cut you down, lawyer, into about 8 minutes. So if you could be concise with us, and then we'll have you back if we have this again. Mr. Bruce.
Chairman, in fact, that's what I was going to comment on.
Okay, there you go.
There we go. Comment on first. Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. I don't know what's happening this session, but there's a lot of public comment that has been cut short. Yes. Getting over it.
No, I said your name, but if you
Correct.
just identify yourself.
Oh, yeah. Policy and Advocacy Director for the ACLU of Georgia. Good to see you again, Chairman. Rushing public comment after everyone has been duly elected in here by people. Y'all should hear from the people that put you up here. So
And
we do
Mr.
not
Bruce,
have time.
I'm going to stop you there.
You wanna stop me there?
I said we would,
Thank
and we
you.
will. And I think you can talk to my members, on the other side of the aisle, and my members
Talk
that,
to all
that
of
are
them.
mine. I don't think we've rushed anything. Am I wrong, Mr. Holcomb, Representative Holcomb? We're going to give you time. So let's get to the point, and not
Happy
not
Friday,
grandstand.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Again, Chris Bruce from the ACLU. I'm here today to strongly oppose HB 602, which unconstitutionally punishes students for exercising their First Amendment rights. HB 602 violates this matter, and I'm pointing to the bill, Section 20-1-51A, which broadly defines material and substantially disruptive conduct, allowing universities to arbitrarily punish students based on content. The Supreme Court has consistently ruled that speech cannot be suppressed simply because it's disruptive or controversial. That is Tinker v. Des Moines. That was a 1969 case. And the bill's vague language invites selective enforcement, violating the court's ruling in Rav v. St. Paul. That's also a 1992 Supreme Court case. That struck down laws that discriminate based on viewpoint. HB 602 also violates the 14th Amendment. Again, going to 20-1-51B, disproportionately impacting students who come from low-income backgrounds and students of color. Wealthier students can afford to protest, while those dependent on student aid face extreme penalties, a clear equal protection violation under Grutter v. Bollinger. That's a 2003 case. 602 also lacks due process protections, students who can lose aid without notice or opportunity to challenge their decisions. So that's a Goss v. Lopez case, 1975. ACLU has challenged similar unconstitutional policies nationwide. In 2025, we filed a lawsuit against the University of Michigan for banning students engaged in peaceful protests. The ACLU of Northern California also sued UC Santa Cruz for unlawfully banning over 100 students on campus for a demonstration. And the ACLU has also sued in Southern California, challenging UCLA's protests. We sue on all sides in all states, red, blue, whatever, as long as we are defending the First Amendment. Let's not have Georgia as one of those places. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield for any questions. Thanks for the time, Chairman.
You have a question from Vice Chairman of the committee. Chairman.
Is there anything in this bill that seeks to prohibit peaceful protest or people exercising their First Amendment? I don't see the peaceful protest as being violated. The way I'm reading it on first blush is if you go to a peaceful protest and you break a window or take a swing at somebody, that's no longer a peaceful protest, right? Is that a fair statement?
It's always based off of the applicability of the law. So if we're talking about a peaceful protest, let's be honest. When Georgia has won the championship game before, there has been several rowdy celebrations that have caused damage to the communities where people have not been arrested. Those students in UGA in downtown Athens, and I am a graduate of UGA law. Some of them have been arrested, some of them haven't. So I could lose my UGA law scholarship for celebrating something such as a UGA championship game.
Well, I'm going to keep us going here, but I'm just going to direct the gentleman's attention, and you're welcome to come to my office anytime and tell me how celebrating a football game would fit the materially and substantially disruptive kind of, not today, but another time. If you would, we've got to move on.
I know,
I
and I
don't mean to
understand.
challenge you, but I'm asking you to tell me that.
Chairman, I will submit a committee report to you outlining these cases.
We're going to give you
for the committee.
ample time to do that and go over things. I promise.
That's fine.
I promise you that you have my word on that.
Thank you, Chairman.
I have a couple. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you have other questions?
No, well, I'm going to.
You want to move it along?
Gentleman waves. All right, we're going to go try to get to another speaker and have the gentleman come up here. Representative Holcomb, did you have a question? I'll go to you before we go to the next speaker. Yes, sir.
I do. I want to make sure that I understand it. So the way that I read it, and this is my first time reading it, is in section 21-1-51, beginning of line 62, is a student would have to be both convicted and then go through this administrative process of a conduct violation, right? So it's both of those factors.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, I'll have to make that.
And then my second question, this gets into just more technical, making sure that the language is precise, is going up to lines 51 through 56. It says that it provides an exception, effectively, and it says if it is protected under the Georgia Constitution or the First Amendment, but then it states, including but not limited to lawful protest in an unrestricted outdoor area. So my first question is, what's an unrestricted outdoor area? And then moving on, it states, except during times when such areas have been reserved in advance for other events. My next question would be, how would students know if something had been reserved in advance for other events? Would there be some type of notice so people would know?
So Representative, so obviously the outdoor restricted, I mean, that's like a quad or North Campus, but every campus has their own policies on how you reserve areas, so whether it's for a student organization meeting or a protest. I mean, there are processes on campuses on how you reserve, whether it's a room or an area on campus, to do whatever you want. So there are processes that campuses have, and I'm sure they vary by campus. But if you're in a student group wanting to organize a protest, I mean, there is a right way to go through to reserve space to do it. It's like any student organization.
But my question is how would students know if unrestricted space had been reserved? Because this seems to add penalties if you engage when it was reserved.
That goes back to...
Allow me, just we're going to have this back, and that's a great question. I think we dealt with that in Representative Chairman Bonner's bill when we were talking about specific spaces that were First Amendment free, but the whole campus should be unless it had been restricted. If you remember, I think I think somebody called it the Forum Bill. I never like to name bills, but I think we had that last year. But the gentleman raised a good question. I would, with the gentleman's indulgence, invite somebody from TCSG and the university system to tell us how that's noted on each in each campus.
That works. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close us out real quick. We're past our time.
Well, I know we're past time,
Mr.
Chairman. I appreciate you having the hearing and look forward to coming back next week.
Okay, we will give ample notice and have more time for folks to speak to one or both these bills. I want to thank Representative Holcomb for getting to line 63, 64, and 65 about the post-secondary educational institution, because on my first read of it, I wanted to strike that language because I didn't want someone to be held by that board but not convicted. But then I got back to what the gentleman said, the and. So it's an even higher bar with both of them in there to do that. But we'll continue to socialize these. And again, my apologies. We were shortened after the meeting was set, and we would have probably needed more time if we'd have just had an hour for both of these. So keep an eye out for them as they come back, if they come back next week.
I'm just going to say something very quickly. I'm going to speak for my father. That's why I came here today. My father was a member of the greatest generation. He fought fascists in World War II. He came back. He went on the GI Bill. He became an English professor.
I'm happy to come talk to you, but we have to adjourn the meeting. I'm happy to come and talk to you. I'm going to do the best I can. Without objection, the meeting's adjourned.
Sunshine Patriots, and he would be appalled by this process. He would be appalled by this process.